Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Strategic Business Growth Multiplier. My name is Mark Dolfini. It is very nice to see you. Welcome this afternoon, and I am very much looking forward to teaching this session. This is one of my foundational sessions that I talk mostly about very broad view, very strategic stuff around setting up a life and a business that you want. So we're going to be covering a lot of different information here, and I'm really excited to see you. So for those of you who are just joining me, go ahead and let me know where you're from. Know where you're from and what line of work you're in. Okay, so we've got a lot of people joining us from, got quite a few from LinkedIn, and got people from YouTube. Hello. Got some people signed up from Eventbrite. Hello to you. It's good to see you. Let me know if you've seen me before. Let me know if you're signing up. This is a session that you have either attended before or if you've been in other sessions. So we've got a lot to cover. So let me know. We've got a couple people here. Let's see. We've got St. Somerville from Anderson, South Carolina. Excellent. Very good. We've got Chelsea Hodgson. My name is Callie Lee, and I'm from the UK. Okay, excellent. Very good. So it's about just after supper time there, Chelsea. Good to have you join us. Let me know too what business that you're in, because I will make this a little bit more relevant to you. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. I haven't done that yet. And we are going to get right to it because I've got a lot of information to cover. So as you guys go ahead and fill in more information, please let me know again your name and what line of work that you're in. This is, hey, I know that person. Hey, Paulette. It is so good to see you. I hope you're enjoying your book. I know that you've got that. And Paulette is also joins me inside the inside the school community. I'll mention that at the end. And so it's very good to have you here, Paulette, and hope you're staying warm where you're at, because it is. If I remember right, you're up in Chicago, so you're a little bit north of me, and man, it has just been. If we had like 60-degree weather, not that long ago, and all of a sudden we're back in the teens and 20s again. Small business consulting and marketing, excellent, very good, St. Somerville. Thanks so much for joining me today. All right, so again, for those of you who are joining on YouTube, please let me know where you're at and what line of work that you're in, because we're going to be talking about growing your business strategically. So that means top down. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's something militant. I just want you to understand a couple of real truths about this. So as you guys are filling in your information here, again, let me know where you're from, what line of work that you're in. There's a couple of things I just want you to understand about some universal truths around establishing a strategy for your life and your business. And there's a couple of things here that I just want you to understand. First and foremost, yes, we are going to be taking a strategic approach, which is a top-down approach. And I know some of you want to scale. Some of you want to grow. And by the way, growing and scaling are not the same things. So I just want you to understand it. But whatever it is, if you're ready to get to the next level, I just need to tell you a couple of truths right out of the gate. First and foremost, you cannot scale a broken business model. You just can't. And a lot of times I see people, they come to me, and right now, and it's not their fault, really. What I see is a lot of social media gurus and a lot of people coming in saying, oh, are you ready to scale? Are you ready to get from 1 million to 10 million or 10 million to 100 million? I see that all the time. And this is interesting because they're not addressing the foundational thing of the fact that you cannot scale chaos. You can't scale a broken business model. And many people are trying to scale chaos. And that is just something that is not scalable. So you can't scale a broken business model. And I'm just telling you that not all businesses are scalable. They just aren't. And the reason for that is because there's some universal truths about businesses. Sometimes, and not to get too foundational too quick, but I see this very often when people are trying to, they'll come to me and they have some sort of business, and let's say and I pick on the cleaning industry. I'm not saying that's not scalable, but it is difficult to scale if you don't have some sort of niche already established. And this is what's interesting is that I've worked with several people who are cleaners, and they were in either small towns or somewhat remote, and they were trying to get out of the cleaning or doing all the cleaning themselves. And they said, it's just funny. I feel like I'm always training my competition, because sooner than later, they're going to go out, this person's going to go out and they're going to go do the same exact thing that I do. And I'm like, exactly right. And so that's because you haven't differentiated yourself. That's because you're doing and training them to do the same thing that they can do, but do it for a little bit less. And that's what happens is people all of a sudden, they start doing a little bit more for a little bit less, a little bit more for a little bit less. And before you know it, no one in the industry is making any money. And that's part of the problem. So I'm not saying just because the business isn't scalable, it's not worth doing. Back in 2009, in fact, when I owed money to like pretty much everybody, I had about $6.5 million worth of real estate, and all of a sudden the bottom fell out of the economy, and I found myself in some various stages of foreclosure on about $5 million of that $6.5 million worth of real estate. So I was in really bad shape, and in about 8 months I lost about $5 million worth of real estate. So took that $6.5 million and turned it into $1.5 million. So for my next trick, that was horrendous. But the thing was, I was doing a lot of different side hustle stuff that really helped me stack some cash so I could establish a toehold and getting out of the situation that I was in without declaring bankruptcy. And I'm not suggesting that, bankruptcy is by itself bad. I mean, sometimes people, it's the only lever that they have left to pull. I had other levers to pull, and strategically, I managed to work myself out of that by just working my tail off and utilizing what skills I had, even though the skills that I was utilizing weren't scalable. What it was I was doing is I was going out and doing a handyman service. I can fix a lot of things. I'm actually pretty good at fixing things. Not so much at construction or like, that handyman type of work, but basically I could fix things. I could fix refrigerators, washers, dryers, things like that. But I could also do some basic, electrical, basic plumbing, things like that. So it was just very basic type stuff. It's just very easy stuff that I could swap out a faucet or something like that, or a toilet valve. So these are the sorts of things that I could do, right? Well, I did that for a period of about a year, and I was making anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500 a day. But I was working my tail off. I was working sometimes 14 to 16 hours a day, every day, 7 days a week. So that is not sustainable. And I really couldn't train anybody else to do what I was doing, because if I trained them, then I'm just training my competition. I'm basically training them to create the same business. And once you get your book of business, these same people would call you back all the time. So I'm just saying, just because that model, it really helped me stack a lot of cash, but I could only do that model for about a year before I really started getting burned out. So I just want to let you know, like, that was a really good lifeboat for me to get me off this sinking ship so I could get to shore. And that's really what, in fact, what it was doing. So see a bunch of people that just joined. Please let me know again where you're at, and you just go ahead and type this in the chat. Let me know where you're at and what line of business that you're in, or even if you're just in here with an idea for a business, you can type that as well, because we're going to be talking about this in terms of strategic business growth multiplier. So we are going to be taking a strategic approach to managing your life and your business. So I'm not going to get super granular on specific things, because I don't know your specific situation, nor do I know your skill set, right? Because there's several dozen people on this call, and I can't tell, I won't be able to know all the different nuances of what, you might be great at lead gen, and someone else might be great at sales, and someone else might be great at the finance side of things. There's all sorts of different aspects that you might be great at. So this is where you're going to leverage the things that you're great at, and then find replacements for the things that you're not great at, and then eventually find replacements for the things you're great at. So you can just kind of step back and monitor, and that's how you grow and you scale. So this is a difference right now. The strategic approach to managing your life and your business is the difference between a strategist and a tactician. A tactician is good at very specific, narrow things. A strategist will group together those best tacticians, right? Think of yourself as a battlefield general, where you're just kind of standing back. You might be up in front and mixing it up with the enemy, right? As many good battlefield generals will be. They're going to be right up front, but the point is they're getting reports from all these different areas, like on their right flank and on their left flank, and what's going on, in the sky, and what's going on, from the sea. Like, they're going to look at all these different aspects of what's going on in the entire landscape, so they can make really good decisions. Does that make sense? So that's what I want for you. Not that you have to know how to do all the individual aspects. Most battlefield generals don't. They just know that those group of Marines over there know how to do their job, and that group of Army tank commanders knows how to do their job, and the Air Force knows how to do their job, and the naval bombardment knows how to do their job. Make sense? Right? So that's that's what you need to know. You just need to know their capabilities so you can be an effective battlefield general. So that's what we're looking at here. So let me know if that makes sense to you, because really that's the essence of good strategy. A strategist will group together the best tacticians. So I'm not going to get super granular on these things because, again, you may have individual things that you're great at, but you are going to need to be bringing other people into your organization. And that is the essence of growth and scaling. So who is this for? Who's this designed for? Well, this session is designed for established business owners with employees. So hold off. If you're saying, well, hold on a second, I don't have an established business and I don't have employees and I don't even know that I really want employees. Okay, listen, if you're an entrepreneur that doesn't have a business yet, but you know you're going to be bringing other people, you see the value of bringing others into your organization, whether they're employees or even if they're just subcontractors, that's fine. That will work. This is not for the solopreneur or the one-man army who wants to stay that way. Where are my one-man armies at, right? Again, I was a one-man army for a long period of time. I was that guy. I did not want to bring other people into my organization, even subcontractors I really didn't want to bring into the organization because I felt like I couldn't control the quality. The problem is, and again, no disrespect if that is you, but if you're looking to grow or even perhaps scale your organization, in order to do that, you're going to have to bring others into your organization. And I fought this idea for years, by the way, and I became very bottlenecked when I tried to do everything myself. And it's not that you can't do everything, but the reality is you can only do one thing at a time, no matter how good you think you are at multitasking. It was interesting that the University of London had done a study on people, and this study has been replicated multiple times, but there was a University of London study that had sought out people who said that they were really good at multitasking. Like these were people who self-identified as good multitaskers. And they brought these people in and they had them doing very simple things, right? Like putting square blocks and square holes while also trying to do some other task. And they found that these people were about as effective as people who were stoned. Right. So I'm just letting you know, like you're trying to, when you're trying to do all these different things, all you're effectively doing is task switching. And that switching in your mind is really rough on the transmission that goes on inside your brain. It's like always like switching from first to third to second and second. Like it's this constant switching back and forth is really rough on our brains. That's why when you spend an entire day, and they've actually researched this, when you spend an entire day doing nothing but task switching, when you think you're actually being much more effective by multitasking, not only are you less satisfied with the day and the work that you have done, you're vastly less effective. So I'm just telling you, multitasking is a complete myth. So for those of you who are multitasking right now, I can see you. Yes, I'm watching you right now. I can't really see you, but I'm just saying, like, I'm letting you know that if you're trying to return emails while you've got me going on in the background, I'm just letting you know, see if you can set that aside for right now. I know some of you are joining from the UK in different time zones, and you might be putting kids to bed or whatever. I totally respect that. But set aside time where you can come back and rewatch this so you can put your best effort forward. Because what we're trying to do is train our brains not to multitask, but to stay focused for periods of time. Just like that's how I wrote 5 different books last year. The Time Wealthy Advantage was this book over my shoulder here. I'll talk about that here in a bit. But also 4 additional supplements, which I was able to publish within a very short period of time. Why? Because I was able to focus and get things done that needed to get done. So I'm just saying this is why you need others in your organization. And in bringing others into your organization has a scaling effect, has a growth effect, specifically scaling effect on your business. So here's what I want you to do. Later on, we're going to be talking about growing by addition versus growing by multiplication. And that's based on the types and the quality of the people that you're bringing into your organization. So how can you control that quality? Well, we're going to control that quality in a number of different ways. But here's what I want you to do. But before we're going to get to the agenda here real quick, but seeking to understand is one standard of what you're going to be learning today. But seeking knowledge to take action is a completely different other standard. So what I want you to learn today, or what I want to hear from you guys today, is at the end, many of you who stick around, and we're probably going to go about an hour from now, so probably wrapped up at 20 past the hour next, or about quarter past the hour, so about an hour from now. And what I want to know is like, hey, if you took a bunch of notes, that's fantastic, but I want to know specifically what action will you be taking? Because that's the thing that's really going to move the needle. The action that is not acted upon is kind of meaningless unless it's really going to drive some sort of action for you. So listen, if it was a great session, fantastic, but tell me what you're actually going to be doing. I'm going to ask you this question again at the end. All right, let's get to the agenda. So the agenda first is we're going to talk about the systems, and then we are actually going to talk about the psychology. This is the S&P methodology that I'm going to be talking about, systems and psychology. Both approaches are necessary. Then we're going to be talking about the 4 core functions of business. We're going to be talking about scaling and having controlled growth into your business. And then, of course, we're going to be talking about different resources. So when you're looking at this business approach that I mentioned, like I said, it's this S&P approach, S&P, which is systems and psychology. So first and foremost, what we're going to look at is the systems component. So as we're looking at the systems piece, everything that I'm going to be talking about in the systems piece and a little bit of the psychology piece is everything that I wrote about in this book here, The Time Wealthy Advantage. And this is the main book that I published last year. This is about a 300-page book, and this has been a book that's been coming out I've been working on for quite a while. But the Time Wealthy Advantage is everything that's broken down into the Viper framework that I'm going to be going through. So if you're interested in going deeper in the Viper framework, this is the book for you. Here's what I'm going to offer. I'm not here to push the book. I just want to let you know where it's coming from. If you are outside the US, your best bet is to get this on Amazon, because that's going to get to you tremendously faster than if I tried to send it to you internationally and dealt with all the different rates and all that. So your best bet is to order from Amazon. However, if you're inside the United States, so you're saying, Paulette, my video is stuck. Paulette, if you can hear me, go out and come back in. So that will sometimes help. So sorry you're having an issue. That does help though sometimes. So if you're inside the United States, however, just like Paulette, so Paulette actually ordered the Time Wealthy Advantage, and I signed it with her name and sent it to her. There's also some bonuses in there. If you go to strategicboardroom.com, and that reminds me, I didn't put the banner up yet. If you go to strategicboardroom.com, you can get access. You can get that offer that's there it's right on the front page. You can't miss it. All right. So that is everything that I have. So I'm not here to push that. I just want you to understand the Viper framework. So let's get to the Viper framework. Viper is an acronym for vision, infrastructure, process, execution, and reporting. And we're going to go through all of this. And we're not going to spend a lot of time in this just because there's so much to unpack, but we are going to hit the high points. And again, we're looking at this from a strategic perspective. So again, in order to speed up, we have to slow down a little bit and be strategic. And you're going to take this time to actually work on these different elements within your business strategy. So let's get to vision first and foremost. Vision is made up of 2 components, personal vision and business vision. So the personal vision, first and foremost, is really what you want your life to look like. So again, you might be asking this primary question, where do you want to go? Paulette, where do you want to go? Saint, where do you want to go? Chelsea, I'm sorry, you go by a different, Chelsea is Callie Lee. So Chelsea's saying that she's currently building a brand as an entrepreneur. I love that, right? So Chelsea, what would your life look like if it wasn't defined by income generation? What if your life description, what if your job description wasn't a life description? So what you do for money has nothing to do with who you are. Right? If people ask me, generally, what do you do? Well, that depends. If I'm in a business context, I'm going to let them know that I'm a strategist. If people are asking me at church, I'm like, well, I'm a father of a 3-year-old. I'm also a father of a 20-year-old and a 17-year-old. My bride and I, we have a 20-year-old, a 17-year-old. Those are our boys, and we have our little girl who's 3. And it's just phenomenal. It's just so much fun. But this is where your what you do for money doesn't have anything to do with who you are. So I want you to think about that in terms of what that would look like in terms of your personal vision. And your business vision is going to ask you a different question. Okay, cool. If that's where you want to go, this is how we're going to get there. That's what the business vision defines. And it's interesting that I have sat in seminars and in masterminds and in all sorts of different events with people who I knew personally, and they were making legit 6 and sometimes 7 figures a month, like net. Like that's what they were taking home. And their life was a complete train wreck. Like what was going on at home was a complete mess. And you know what they were more worried about? They were worried about making more money. They were worried about making an extra comma in their bank account. And that's what they were focused on. So I'm just saying, like, look, I'm not suggesting that business vision is irrelevant. It just can't come first, because the danger in creating a business vision before ever creating a personal vision is that you end up creating a life that exists to serve the business. And I'm just telling you that sucks. Like, I'm not, like I said, we're gonna talk a little bit about personal vision here, and then the rest of the time we're gonna be talking about business vision. But just hear me for just this 1 second. I hear this a lot from younger folks, and I'll tell you what, when I was in my 20s, you could not have told me this. I would not have listened to this at all. And I spent the better part, more than a decade, chasing the wrong thing. And I'll tell you what, I wasted a lot of time and a lot of life, a lot of really good quality years of my life chasing this thing, when realistically I could have been having the best of both worlds. So when I hear this, yeah, let me make, $100,000 a month, or let me make, $1 million in a year, and then I'll worry about this better life thing. And well, that's the same thing that these guys who were sitting next to me making 6 and 7 figures, and they never did do that. So just saying. So let's talk about personal vision real quick, and then we'll get to the business vision. So personal vision, one of the things that I like to suggest is to consider your 100th birthday speech. So you're turning 100, you're turning 100 years old, and this is what I want you to think about. Who would you want to be in the room if you were turning 100 years old and you had this 100th birthday speech? What would you say to them? So you got these people, these loved ones, you're turning 100 years old, they put you in front of this little stage, and you got all these people in your life that you want there. What would you say to them? What would you want others to say to you when you were done speaking after you step down? They say, oh my gosh, Nana or Grandpa or whatever they call you, right? What would you want them to say to you? And what would be the message that you would want the others to carry outside the room when you were done speaking? Now, some of you might be thinking, man, 100 years old? Like, come on, man. Like, I'm in my 20s. Like, I can't think about that. Like, that's way too far off. Okay, fair enough. How about, and that's something called, by the way, that's something in the psychological realm that's called future self discontinuity, which basically means that you are disconnected from your future self, which is not uncommon, by the way. But let's think about this from the perspective of, okay, well, how about, let's say 100 is too far off. Okay, I respect that. How about your next milestone, like this next major milestone in your life? Let's say you're getting ready to turn 30. Let's say you're going to turn 40, or let's say that your kids are getting ready to graduate high school in a few years, right? Maybe that would be a time for you to come up with this message or something along those lines. What would you want your life to look like at that milestone? All right, does that make sense? So I want you to think about that in terms of your personal vision. All right, so we're going to put the fries in the bag on personal vision. We're not going to talk about that for the rest of the time here, but we are going to talk about business vision. And when you're thinking about business vision, this is absolutely critical. This is what helps define the DNA of your company. And these 3 C's are core purpose, core values, and client avatar. Core purpose, core values, client avatar. And I'm telling you, whenever I get hired as a strategist or as a fractional CSO, which is a chief strategic officer, and I'm working with the C-suite of individuals within this organization, these 3 areas right here there is almost always massive glaring holes in them. And that is why they're struggling. They're struggling to get good customers who pay and don't complain all the time. You don't have massive amounts of turnover in your staff. You don't have money problems. You don't have all sorts of problems with people who, like, even branding problems, even lead generation problems, sales problems. There's all sorts of problems that exist when these three areas are not defined and they're not in alignment. So let's get to them right now. Let's look at core purpose. Core purpose is specifically what business are you in and what problems do you specifically solve? And the key word there is specific. You need to be highly specific in your answers. What business are you specifically in and what problems do you specifically solve? I can't tell you how many times I have gotten into conversations with these serial entrepreneurs, and they wear these serial entrepreneurs like a badge of honor. Trust me, I get it. I was one of those guys. I am not that anymore. I'm a reformed serial entrepreneur. That doesn't mean that I don't have multiple businesses, but I'm not trying to run all these businesses at the same time. I get a business up and running. I get it operating on its own, and then I monitor, and then I go to the next one. That, to me, is a serial entrepreneur. That's a serial business owner. But people who've got like 7 or 8 different things going on, all they have are 7 or 8 different jobs. And when they're not working that job, that means they're not making any money. That's a very big difference and a very different standard than having 7 businesses that are running. Does that make sense? So what you're not trying to do is create 7 different jobs. You're trying to create 7 different businesses that, whether you're sleeping, whether you show up, whether you're sick, whether you're on vacation, whatever, if you're laying in bed or laying on a beach or sitting at a desk, you're making money. That's the difference. So what I'm saying is, when I talked about around core purpose, when I talk to lots of different people who say, well, I've got this, I've got insurance, and I'm doing real estate. Okay. That's tricky, because think about this. Especially if people are going to come to you, are they going to really know what business that you're in and what problems do you specifically solve? And they'd say, well, that, yeah, people know that I'm in insurance and they know I'm in real estate. Okay. How's that working out for you? Because I'm telling you, there's a lot of people who really focus on one specific area. Like, I have a guy, his name is Rob, and he is absolutely crushing it in the insurance space. He does have real estate holdings, but that's where he stores his wealth. But he really makes the bulk of his money by buying mom and pop real estate agencies. And he is absolutely killing it. And he's known in the insurance industry for that. And that's his thing. And people don't get him confused for that. I'm sure he's got a lot of different things that he does, but that's what people know him for. That's his core purpose. So what I'm saying is, I'm not suggesting you can't have these other things, but focus on one, get that core purpose up and running, get that thing right, and then go to the next one. Let's look at core values. The core values is what matters to you about this business and how would the world be worse off if you went out of business. Now, I know core values sounds really kind of squishy. I get that. But here's what you want to consider, all right? The core values represents your core values, because your business is just an extension of you. Does that make sense? And because your business is just an extension of you, your business should occupy the same, if not very similar, core values that you have. So you might be thinking, okay, well, what are the core values? What are my core values? Okay, my core values, I don't know. Like, how do I determine these things? I'm going to show you I'm going to demonstrate how you can define your core values. Have you ever had a friend that you lost because they were heading down a path that you couldn't follow? Let me know in the comments. Have you ever had a friend? Sometimes it might have been a family member. Sometimes it might have been a romantic interest that you had to let go because they were heading down a path that you were not willing to follow. They were violating some sort of value for you. In fact, I would call that a core value, because this is how you know something is it's different from a value. A value is something that we just value. Okay, I intrinsically value peanut M&Ms, right? But I'm not going to go to war over peanut M&Ms. But someone breaks into my house and threatens my family, I'm going to war. Okay? And it's not going to end well for them. That's how I know something is a core value, is when when I'm willing to get up off the couch and act, when I'm willing to actually take action on something that is a value of mine. So that's how you know it's representative of a core value of yours. Maybe it was honesty, maybe it was integrity, maybe you had the worst boss ever. Okay, well, what made him the worst boss? Well, they always would say one thing and do another. Okay, that sounds like integrity to me, right? Not being in alignment, right? Not being in integrity. So these are the sorts of things that where you look at those excesses in your life, the excessively good, the excessively bad. Those are the things that I want you to consider. So when you're starting to think about that, that's where you start to define your core values. Now, you might think, okay, well, what does this have to do with the price of green beans? Listen, your core values are what help you to determine and define your company culture. And your company culture and your company brand are inextricably linked. And your core values, or I'm sorry, your company culture is what's experienced by the people who work inside your organization. Your company brand is what's experienced by people outside your organization. So think of a company that you know that has a really strong company brand. Chances are they have a really strong company culture inside their organization. And that all stems from a defined set of core values. So again, this isn't just some willy-nilly, real squishy sort of management speak. This is very real. And the companies that have very well-defined core values are significantly more profitable. So if you're trying to grow a company or grow an organization that you perhaps maybe want to one day step out of and sell to someone else, they're absolutely going to want to buy something that has a defined set of core values and a very strong company culture. Anybody can buy, if not, they could just create the thing themselves. But if they have to create brand and culture and everything else, man, that is a lot of work that most people don't want to do. Okay, so think about that. So we talked about core purpose, we talked about core values. Now let's talk about client avatar. So in terms of the client avatar, and for those of you who are just joining, please let me know where you're from and what line of work that you're in. We've got a bunch of people that just joined all of a sudden, like a flood of people all of a sudden. So when we're talking about client avatar, I want you to think about this. I want you to think of who specifically and ideally, who do you ideally want to work with? Who do you ideally want to serve? And you might be thinking about this in the context of their geographics, their demographics, and their psychographics. And this is all pretty straightforward, right? The geographics is where they are. The demographics is who they are. Are they old? Are they young? Are they married? Are they single? Do they have kids? Do they have no kids? These are all very straightforward, right? So geographics is where they are, demographics is who they are, and psychographics is how psycho they are, right? No, I'm just kidding. Psychographics is how they think and how they buy. So how they think and how they buy. So when you're thinking about how they think and how they buy, you want to think of the phrase ALIA, A-L-I-A. And that is their attitudes, their lifestyles, their interests, and their aspirations and goals. So let's unpack this really quickly. When you're thinking about someone's psychographics, you're thinking about their attitudes, you're thinking about their emotions, you're thinking about the things that matter to them. Like you might be thinking, okay, well, what's their attitude on education? What's their attitudes on social media? What's their attitude on life in general? What's their attitude on learning new things, right? So what's their attitude on travel? What's their attitude on whatever? Like it doesn't really matter, but once you understand their attitudes and once you understand their emotions that are driving them, it is significantly easier to reach them in your marketing. So if you're trying to grow and you're trying to scale, you have to understand how to attract the people that are going to buy from you, and understanding their attitudes is one key part of that. What about their lifestyle? If you're thinking about their lifestyle, you might be wanting to think about their, are they young and jet setting type, or are they young and they like to spend their weekends at home? Are they homebodies? Maybe they're older, maybe they have grandchildren and they like to spend time with their grandkids or whatever. But what's their lifestyle like? What are their interests? Do they like to read? Do they like to go to art galleries? Do they like to watch NASCAR? Do they like to watch Formula One? Do you like to watch American football or European football? Either way, what are their interests? Because again, if you understand their lifestyles, if you understand their interests, Again, you'll be much easier to reach them in your marketing. What are their aspirations and goals? And if this one could be, I put a little star by it, this is a really big one. Because when you understand what people's goals are, when you understand what people aspire to be, that is a really powerful thing. And again, you can reach them in your marketing, especially if your product or service helps them aspire to be something more than what they are right now. Does this make sense? You have to spend the time doing this. And I know right now, the core purpose, core values, and client avatar, I will tell you, there's a lot of people who learn this stuff and they do nothing with it. They do nothing with it. And guess what? Nothing changes. Nothing changes. Okay. And this is the reason why people stay stuck, right? And because people, they have a much higher tolerance for suffering than they do for change. And because they're more willing to suffer than they are willing to change, they stay stuck. So don't let that be you. And that's a real distinction between the people who are actually going to change things and people who are actually going to not change in their life. So go through these three C's. So for you, if you want to write it in the chat, let me know. You guys are a quiet bunch today. Let me know in the chat, which of these three do you feel like you have really dialed in? Or maybe which one of these three do you really feel that you have to work on? Go ahead and type that in the comments if you like. All right, so we're going to keep rolling though. So in the vision piece, we talked about personal vision and we talked about business vision. Now let's get to the other piece, the other component of the Viper framework, which is infrastructure. Infrastructure is the bones of the business, right? It's the gears and all the stuff that works behind the scenes in this big giant grandfather clock that we have. This is the bones of the business. You want to think of things like your desks and your chairs, your computers, your phones, your software, like your websites. It might be it might be your payment processor, whatever. But this is all of the infrastructure and bones of the business that is absolutely critical to the optimal running of your business. It is absolutely key. You cannot skimp on infrastructure. And if you don't plan for infrastructure, it's going to come back and bite you. So you might be thinking, well, Mark, if infrastructure is so important, why does vision come first? I'm glad you asked. So let's say Saint, thank you. Oh, Saint says purpose. So core purpose, is that the thing that you're clear about, or is that the thing you know need to work on? Let me know that. Let me know in the comments. Thanks for responding. So let's say Saint Somerville decides that he wants to go for 2 months out of the year and lay on the beach in Spain. Okay, great, right? Rubbing cocoa butter on his belly. Okay, that's fine. But if he builds an infrastructure that's going to require him to return emails and phone calls in a timely manner, that's going to be a horrible experience when he's trying to lay on the beach in Spain for 2 months out of the year rubbing cocoa butter on his belly, right? So everything supports that vision. You're going to build the infrastructure that's in alignment with your vision for the future, okay? So Saint is saying purpose is what he's clear about. Perfect. I love that. So now that you've got that clear, now start really working on the other areas. And I will tell you this, and thank you for responding, Saint. For those of you who have not written this stuff down, I'm telling you, and I'm not trying to be a jerk here, I'm just trying to, this is this important, is that if you don't have it written down from a 1 out of 10, I think you cannot be any more clear than a 5. You really have to have it written down. And the reason for that is because your brain will betray you. You will think you're clear on it today, and you'll think you're clear on it tomorrow, and 6 months from now, you'll think you're still about the same level of clarity. And if you had them written down, if you looked at one to the other, you would think that 2 different people had written them down. So I'm just telling you, write these things down so your mind is not left to wander, and you're not having to remember these things from one day to the next. All right, so let's get to the rest of the Viper framework. We're talking about systems here. And again, we're talking ultimately about scaling, the strategic business growth multiplier. So look at the vision. We talked about infrastructure. Now let's talk about process. Process is simply how you do stuff. And it's both from a tactical perspective and a strategic perspective. So from a process, in the tactical part of process, rather, when you're looking at tactical, you're looking at how you do stuff from a day-to-day perspective. It's your standard operating procedures. It's your checklist items. It's just basically how you do stuff from day to day. It's like your opening procedures, your closing procedures, how you prepare bank deposits, and even how you answer the phone. Make sense? So if I was to draw a box around infrastructure and the tactical part of process, that's the system. That's your business system. And you might be thinking, okay, great. So now I built this business system. I have infrastructure and I have tactical process and how to do stuff every single day. Who cares about that? Well, this is why the strategic part of process is so important, because I want you to think of that system as a ship. You just built this ship or this battleship and you have it moored in the harbor, right, against the dock. Well, you don't want to just leave it there, right? A ship is meant to go out to sea. Otherwise, it's just going to get battered by whatever economic winds happen to blow across the bay. So you want to take that ship out of the bay and go make some trouble, right? That's what you want to do with your system. So you have to be strategic with it. You have to make plans, and that's what strategic planning comes into play when you're looking at process. So when you're talking about strategic planning, you're looking at people, you're looking at purpose, and you're looking at promotion. People, purpose, and promotion. The people are the people that you need in the organization, right? So that might be, you might need new suppliers, you might need new vendors, but you also may be looking for different customers. Maybe you're looking to segment your customers a little bit and you're seeking a little bit, a different segment of your avatar. Where have you heard avatar before? That's right. Your people, especially when you're attracting, clients, that has to be in alignment with your client avatar, the client avatar that we defined in the 3 C's of business vision. And by the way, they should probably also be in alignment with your core values. Because again, you don't want to work with people who are not aligned with your core values any more than you don't want to attract employees that don't align with your core values. That's why core values are so important to address and define. So when you're talking about purpose, now you're talking about the strategic purpose. Are you looking to go out and gain market share? Are you trying to vertically integrate into an existing market? Or are you trying to go into a completely new market? What's the purpose of your strategic plan? Which, by the way, should also be in alignment with what? It should also be in alignment with your core purpose. That's what we talked about earlier, right? So if you don't have a strategic purpose that's in alignment with a core purpose, that would be like Starbucks selling chainsaws. It doesn't make any sense. But you're like, well, Starbucks is like, yeah, but you can make money doing it. Okay. Hi, welcome to Shiny Object Syndrome 101. And that's what happens is a lot of people, they see opportunities, but it's nothing more than distractions. So this is where you're looking at a strategic purpose, which also has to be in alignment with your core purpose. So now let's look at promotion. Promotion is just, think of promotion as just communicating, but doing it a lot. So again, promotion can also be, it can be marketing and outward advertising where you're attracting and you're promoting this strategic plan, or it could be saying a lot of the same things to your employees, where again, you have to say these things a lot to promote this strategic plan and let people know, nope, this is the route we're going on. This is the route we're going on. We're not going to wander. We're staying true to this strategic plan. Does this make sense? So again, I see this all the time with small business owners, especially entrepreneurs, who they have the idea of the week, or again, the idea of the day. Every time they get out of the shower, they've got a new idea, right? Again, I get it. I'm not here to indict you. I understand how that is, but I'm just letting you know that you can't go to your staff with a new idea every single week, because they're like, okay, are we doing this idea, or are we doing the idea that we talked, like the 37 ideas you had last week? And that will drive your people bananas. So again, and that will honestly drive good people away. So you have to, this is why, again, the promotional piece, it has to be in alignment with the purpose, the people, and of course, the 3 C's of business vision. So that is process. So we talked about tactical process and we talked about strategic process. Now let's look at execution. Execution this is one of my favorite quotes from General George S. Patton. A good plan violently executed now is better than the perfect plan executed next week. And the reason I bring this up is because most people most plans fall apart in their execution. Most people just do not execute well. And part of the reason for that is because they have way too many priorities in their life. Again, for those of you business owners out there that have like the list of 71 items on their to-do list that they're going to get done today, right? I know who you are. Okay. Again, I understand what that's like because I was that guy. But having too many priorities has the same impact as having none. And that's why I come up with something called a daily 5. The daily 5 are up to 5 highly specific actions that you can take, which are going to move the needle towards your vision or your strategic plan. Either or. Now I'm talking 5 highly specific actions. I'm saying, okay, good. So now we're going to plan all this stuff out. This is what we're going to do. But okay, so I'm going to check email. Really? Check email is highly specific. That's going to be the needle mover for you? Okay, probably not. But if you say I'm going to get on the call and make 15 cold calls, okay, I could see that as one highly specific action. What are the other 4 highly specific actions you're going to do that day? Okay, so again, I'm talking highly specific, and you can't just be really willy-nilly about this. So for me, I can do daily 5, but for me, the best is daily 3. If I can do 3 things every single day that are going to be the needle moving activities, I know I'm going to hit my goals. So that's what I'm saying. 5 is kind of max for me, but no more than 5. Because again, this is where you start to get too many priorities. Again, having too many priorities has the same impact as having none. That doesn't mean that's the only thing on your to-do list, by the way, right? So let's get to execution. So we talked vision, infrastructure, process, execution, and now we're looking at reporting. So the reporting function is just made up of 2 key points. It's your lead metrics and your lag metrics. Your lead metrics are just based on your actions and your activities that you performed, based on your daily 5. Make sense? So if you have your daily 5 actions and activities, these are pretty easy for you to measure. Those are your actions and activities, your daily 5 actions and activities. Very simple to measure. Then you look at your lag metric, which are just simply the results. So if you're going to make 15 cold calls as part of your lead metrics, great. The lag metric would be the result of that. How many sales did you get? Do you have any direct control over your lag metrics? No, you don't have any direct control. You have indirect control, but short of, pulling out a gun, you cannot make people do things. So this is why I'm saying the lag metric, you really don't have I don't have any choice of how many people signed up for this, or how many people showed up for this. I don't have any direct control. I do have indirect control. I need to make sure that my content is good. I need to make sure it's moving quickly enough, but not so superficial that people aren't getting real value. I don't have any real control over how many people stay. Make sense? But I do have control of my actions and activities. So that's why I'm saying you have to measure both. Don't just measure the results, because you don't have direct control over the results, but you do. But the lead metrics, the actions and activities, give those results context. All right, so that's the Viper framework, and that is the system. That is the systems part of the business. So now let's look at the psychology. So when you're looking at psychology, systems are important. Systems are massively important, but systems are only going to get you so far. That's why you have to look at it from the perspective and recognize that systems, they offer stability, they offer consistency, they offer accountability. That's what systems are great at. What systems are not great at is making subjective decisions. They're not great at adapting to rapid market changes or coming up with creative solutions or even maintaining or establishing human connections. Human connections is the key here. Yes, I know AI can make a lot of things seem very real, but at the end of the day, like I see Paulette Marshall on here. Paulette, she and I have conversed. We've talked. She's purchased my book. We've communicated back and forth a little bit. That's kind of hard to replicate if my AI was doing it and I had no knowledge of that. That's how she knows for sure. How would I know that she lived? I'm pretty sure I know she lives north of me. I think she lives in Chicago. But my point is, I know she lives north of where I'm at here in Lafayette, Indiana. So I just remember sending it north, and that was the thing that's important. If you have AI as the surrogate, you're going to be missing things, important things. So this is when you're looking at the business approach. Again, when you're looking at the systems, this is when we're going to be talking about psychology. So let's unpack psychology just a little bit. When you're looking at psychology, there's 2 main components to psychology. There is both the personal and individual psychology, and also the business and organizational psychology. So when you're Detroit, that's it. I knew you were north of me. Yeah, because we talked about the cold weather. Very good. Thank you, Paulette. Yeah, that reminds me now. Okay, so when you're looking at the personal psychology, you're looking at things like self-worth, you're looking at things like self-management, limiting beliefs, emotional intelligence, things like that in the individual and personal psychology. And not to gloss over this, because a lot of people, and this is something that I work with folks who are in my school community. I'm going to be starting this particular training up, is working on that individual psychology. Because when you bring with you in your organization your own personal head trash, your own personal bad relationship with money, or your own bad relationship with time, or where you have an affinity for starting things and not finishing things, that's individual psychology that you're bringing to the organization. And that's no bueno. That's not going to work. So you have to think about that. Like, the personal psychology is stuff that you have to work on. But you also have to recognize that business and organizational psychology has a place as well. And when you're looking at that, you're looking at it from an external and internal perspective. So let's look at business psychology for just a second. When you're looking at business psychology, you have external and internal. So external, you're thinking about external like buying psychology. You're looking at vendors, which is even around negotiations and negotiation strategy, and even things related to politics. I'm not talking office politics. I'm talking like politics, like the political spectrum out there, right? Far right, far left, whack jobs, everything from the extremes all the way to the middle. So you have to recognize that politics does have a place for you to actually address in your business. And I'm not suggesting that you have to take a political stand. I'm just saying that there's psychology involved in the external component in the external environment for business psychology. But let's talk about internal psychology around management, but specifically what I want to focus on is leadership. Now, I'm currently in a PhD program for industrial and organizational psychology. And it's interesting to me how many different leadership leadership models, I guess, is probably the best way to say it. How many different leadership models there are, and leadership theories, and just so many different things around leadership. And it's interesting to me that when I look at leadership, there are three main pillars that must exist. Even though I've looked through all these different models and everything else, these three pillars must exist. They are trust, vision, and communication. Trust, vision, and communication. Let me unpack these just a little bit. If let's say for argument's sake that people let's say that you have people's trust, okay, and let's say that you have a vision that is something that they bought into, like a shared vision. People trust you highly. They really they trust that you're going to do what you say and say what you do and all the things, right? They trust everything about you. They trust that you have had conversations with them around a shared vision. You've asked them and brought them in, right? But you're a horrible communicator, or you're just not a very effective communicator, or you don't do it often enough. People are not going to follow you. You're not going to be an effective leader, and you may not know why. Let's say that you have a shared vision, and let's say that you are an articulate communicator and a great communicator, but people don't trust you. It won't matter. You're not going to be an effective leader. You're not going to be able to effectively lead them. Or let's say, for argument's sake, that you have their trust and you're a great communicator, but you've never really created a shared vision with them. You never brought them in. You just kind of said, hey, this is the direction we're going in, and you left the room. You never really gave them an opportunity to have a shared vision. Again, people are not going to follow you. They're not going to, or if you don't have a vision at all, they're going to wonder why they're there. And that's going to be important, especially with younger generations. They want to have a mission that they can buy into. So these three pillars here are absolutely critical. Are there other elements of leadership that are absolutely important? Yeah. When I was in the Marine Corps, they literally beat into us the leadership traits of justice and judgment and decisiveness, integrity, dependability, tact, initiative, endurance, bearing, unselfishness, courage, knowledge, loyalty, enthusiasm. They trust and know. They beat that into us. But does it mean that none of those matter? No, of course they matter. But if you don't have these, those are irrelevant. That's why I'm saying trust, vision, and communication, they have, all three of them must exist if you're going to be hope to be effective. So you might be thinking, does leadership really matter that much? Does it really? Who cares? Well, I'm going to tell you why leadership does matter. Right now, I'm writing my next book called The Time Wealthy Leader Boss. And this whole premise around this is around having people who are very caring versus people who have too much candor. And caring versus candor is kind of a big deal. And I tend to attract people who are very caring. It just tends to be very common. I tend to attract people who have so much caring, in fact, that they don't really want to tell other people and have candor with them because it might hurt their feelings. I get that. That's kind of how I was for a long time. But the problem with bosses that are too caring is that they tend to get walked all over. Like, man, I'm just too nice. Or again, I've been a property manager for about 25 years. And people say, man, I can't own rental properties. I'm just too nice. Okay, no, it's not the problem that you're too nice, is that you don't have enough candor. So that's why I say you have to have an equal part of caring and candor. If you have too much candor, where you just tell people the way it is and you don't really seem to care, and people are like, man, I don't care about that person at all. They don't care about me. Why should I care about them? Is that they will do absolutely the bare minimum and not one thing more. Do not ask them to work late. Do not ask them to work extra hours. They will not. They will not give you any discretionary effort. So what I'm saying is the caring and candor must be an equal match. They have to be balanced, and I would say equally balanced. And caring and candor, where you tell people, hey, look, I'm going to tell you something that might be hurtful for you to hear, is that when you bring these things up, that you have to be honest with them, and you have to be able to tell them these things. And this all relates to something called a level 5 leader. So when you're looking at a level 5 leader, this is something that was defined by John Maxwell. It was also defined by Jim Collins. Jim Collins wrote multiple books. He wrote Good to Great. He wrote Great by Choice, Built to Last. Very, very good books. Very well-researched books, by the way. And John Maxwell has written, like, I don't even know, like 150 books or something crazy. Like, he's written a lot of books. But he's written a lot of books around level 5 leaders. And level 5 leaders, they defined them a little differently. But the main thing that they looked at when they defined these level 5 leaders these were leaders that put their organizations first. They put their people first. And when I say their people, they put their customers and their workers and everyone first in the organization. They did not put themselves first in the organization. And these companies that were driven by level 5 leaders were significantly more profitable when they were being tracked. They grew much faster. They had a much stronger company culture. And guess what? Oh my gosh, like a bad penny keeps showing back up, right? They had a defined set of core values. So again, all of these things are based in research. I'm not just making this stuff up. So let's see. Michelle. Hi, Mark. Sorry, I lost reception 10 minutes ago. Can't get it back. Oh, gosh darn it. I don't know why that keeps happening. If someone could just put a message in and just tell it to try to log out and log back in, that tends to work. And I don't know why that would be happening. Someone else had an issue with that earlier. So I'll just put that in there. Try logging out and back in, please. There we go. All right. So the one thing is, this chart here that I'm putting up on the session right now, if you look at these 4 companies, some of these companies you might have recognized: Amgen, Intel, Microsoft, and Southwest. This I excerpted from the book. This came out of Great by Choice by Jim Collins and Morton Hansen. And these companies were tracked over a period of 30 years. And if you look at the returns, keep in mind these are not percentages. These are multiples. This means if you put $1,000 down, you didn't make a 24% return. You earned a 24 times return. So based on the overall market in Amgen or Intel, look at Microsoft and Southwest, 63 times the market. So this is what I'm saying and these were companies that were all driven by really good leaders, by level 5 leaders. And the 100 best places to work list frequently represents the companies with the highest stock returns. So look, leadership makes a huge difference. And the reason for that is because growth requires change, and leadership is what manages that change. And I hear this a lot, like, how do I get my people to care as much as I do? Or I feel like I should be much further along in my business. I'm just telling you, the speed of the leader is the speed of the team. So you might need to look at your own leadership, especially if you're thinking, how do I get these people to care as much as I do? Or how do I get them to move, to move faster? Again, you have to look at your own speed. You have to look at how fast you're going, and you have to look at your own ability to lead. So this is your business approach from a systems approach and psychology approach. Okay. So again, we're going to leave this behind. Don't let this be the only time that you actually talk and think about your own leadership. And I'm telling you, leadership makes a huge difference. So the next component of this is going to be the 4 core functions of business. And this has to be true in every single business. So the 4 core functions of business are lead generation, sales, operations, and accounting. And your customer's journey through your business happens in that order. Lead generation, they experience the marketing, they experience some form of networking, they experience some direct response ad or outbound lead or an inbound lead or something. They've somehow you got on each other's radar. Now sales comes into play, where sales is where they're having and connecting with one another, right? You're solving problems. You're not holding their heads underwater until they say yes. That's not selling. That's being a bully. The operations is where you fulfill, right? You do the fulfillment piece. You build the website. You build the deck. You build the roof. You build the house. You deliver whatever it is. You do the massage, whatever. That's the operations and fulfillment function. And the last component of that is the accounting and finance function, which is collecting the money and tracking the bills and making sure that you're profitable and tracking all of the important and relevant metrics. So that is the 4 core functions. The next piece is the actual setting to scale and actually controlling your growth. And growth that's not going to metastasize into something that you don't want. So when you're looking at the 4 core functions of business, the lead generation piece is where you're targeting your client avatar. Again, we talked about your client avatar way back, but you can't target something you don't know, something you haven't defined. So define your target avatar so you can target them. Then with your avatar defined, you know who exactly you want to target. You know exactly who you want to work with. And then it is much easier for you to direct your marketing towards. And these are the people that bring you the most amount of money with the least amount of drama. And I don't know about you, like I'm 53. I do not want drama in my life as much as I can escape that. So here's what I want you to do. I'm going to put this up. You'd say that does work. Okay, yes. Yeah, Paulette was having that same issue, Michelle. So hopefully you're back. So when you're looking at this, I'm going to put up 15 reasons why people buy. And this does, let me go ahead and take myself down. 1, so I can get a drink of water. And 2, so you can take a screenshot of this. All right, that's much better. So what you're going to do, and some of you have seen this before. I know, Paulette, you've seen this before. But what you're going to do is you're going to write these things down, and I want you to write this list of 15 reasons why people will buy. They're going to buy to make money. They want to buy to save money. They'll buy to save time, avoid effort, escape pain. And that could be emotional pain, physical pain, spiritual pain even sometimes. They'll buy for more comfort. They will buy for better health. And that could be in the form of less stress, by the way. They'll buy to feel more love, to gain praise, increase their status with their tribe. They'll buy for truth. They'll buy for truth, by the way, especially if they have felt lied to in the past. That's a big deal. They will buy for growth, right? Growth in their knowledge, growth in their faith, right? Even growth in their wellness. They'll buy for novelty just because something is new. They'll buy for more control or perceived control or more certainty, right? They'll also buy to be in contribution to others. So here's your homework. And this can only be done if you have a well-defined core purpose, core values, and client avatar, by the way. Because once those are defined, what you're going to do is I want you to get out, you can do 15 pieces of paper or, use double sides. It doesn't really matter. But the point is this. I want you to write make money across the top of that one piece of paper. And I want you to think of all the ways, directly and indirectly, how you and your product or service help them make money, directly or indirectly. I want you to think of all those different reasons. Imagine you came up with 10 reasons. And again, they can be a little creative. That's okay. Right? Let's well, what if I mow lawns? Okay, so how do you, by mowing lawns, help someone else make money? Well, if my billing rate, when I'm working as a chief strategic officer, if my billing rate's $1,000 an hour, should I be spending 2 hours to mow my lawn? First of all, I hate mowing my lawn. I absolutely cannot stand it. It's one thing that I used to enjoy it. Now I can't do it. I really just hate doing it. But I would much rather pay someone $60 to mow my lawn than and forego that $1,000 an hour that I could be making. Right? So you think about how you could indirectly help someone make money. Now, again, that's unusual, right? I usually don't get those kind of rates, but I do get those kind of rates when I'm working as a fractional CSO. So I just want you to think about this when I'm working, if your product or service could help me make money by making sure that you're doing this thing indirectly. Does it make sense? So how do you directly or indirectly help people save money? How do you directly or indirectly help people save time or avoid effort or escape pain, physical pain, emotional pain, right? So forth and so on, right? So I want you to think of all those different ways. So now when you come up with 10 for each of these columns, minimum, now you've got 150 or more different reasons why people are going to want to buy your product or service. And this is going to help in your lead generation. This is going to help when you're trying to market to them with the things that matter to them. And this is how it's also going to help you in your growth and when you're scaling. So you can actually put out marketing that is intentional, marketing that actually matters to them. So when you're looking at your lead generation function, everything needs to support your lead generation function. All your profits need to support your lead generation function. Yes, of course, you can take some money out to have a better life and do it with all those things, but you have to continually support your lead generation function, because the truth is this: you can have the best, most efficient business. You can be an absolute paragon of truth, justice, and virtue, and your sales techniques so dialed in, you could sell ice to Eskimos and voting booths to Castro, and you can still starve. That's the truth. So you can never, ever, 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 ever take your foot off the gas when it comes to lead generation. I have seen too many companies that I have once worked with, and they were starting to struggle. And I was like, man, I mentioned the lead generation piece to them, but they really weren't doing much about it. And I should have been a little bit more forceful. But again, at the end of the day, it's their company. But even if you have more leads than you can handle, I'm telling you, you cannot ever take this for granted. So your lead generation functions, especially if you're looking to grow, your lead generation activities need to be 60 to 70% of your overall organization's activities. And I know that sounds really aggressive, but even if you get to the bottom end of that range, you have a lot of lead generation activities around what's going on in your organization. If you're a solopreneur, yeah, and you might be thinking, well, 10 hours a day is what you devote to working. Okay, yeah, that means 6 to 7 hours are probably going to be devoted to lead generation. And those are direct lead generation activities. So again, going back to the execution piece, your daily 5, really those daily 5 activities should occupy 60 to 70% of your entire day. So Michelle, you're back. Paulette says, yeah, that does work. You're logging in and out. Okay, good. Michelle, it's good to have you back. So yeah, sorry. I don't know what goes on. Sometimes there's a glitch, and I don't know if it's in StreamYard. I don't know where it is. So I do apologize. I don't have any control over that, unfortunately. All right. So anything that you did miss, obviously you can watch on YouTube, or again, you will be getting the replay sent in your inbox. And you said I am. Very good. It's good to have you back. Michelle, remind me where you're at. I remember remember seeing you. I just don't remember exactly where you're from and the line of work you're in. I remember your name. You have a very unique name. All right. So the lead generation, and then the next component after lead generation is the sales component. And that just continues the conversation that started by the lead generation piece, right? And we talked about this. Effective selling is not about holding people's heads underwater until they say yes. It's about finding effective solutions. It's about having conversation. In fact, I was having a great conversation with someone who works in a med spa right now, and they are having their techs during down periods contact their clients, especially if they haven't been in their spa for the last 60 to 90 days. So they just call them and they're like, well, what are we going to say? I feel icky about selling to them. Look, do you have an opening in your calendar? They're like, well, yeah. Okay. Call them and tell them, hey, this is Mark. I didn't know if you'd be interested in this, but we have several openings in our calendar for our microdermabrasion. It's priced at $127. And since you're using that, you see what I'm saying? This is what I'm talking about. It's just conversational. Would that be something you might be interested in? No, I don't think so. Okay, all good. I just wanted to see if that was something you might be interested in. If not, all right, well, have a great rest of your day. That's it. Would this be something you might be interested in, right? You're offering an opportunity, finding solutions, right? Or they're like, well, tell me more about the microdermabrasion. Well, really what it is, it's like tilling the soil, right? You're tilling the soil, you're taking off all those bad exfoliant, and I don't know much about this stuff, so I'm just kind of making it up. But it's like taking off that outer layer and really opening up your pores so it really allows nutrients to be put in. And this is what we do. We actually offer this hydrating mask. It really reduces wrinkles. It really allows that to really be absorbed because we've stripped away all that bad stuff. Now we can really allow those nutrients to be absorbed in your skin. Really reduces wrinkles, fine lines. It really makes you, it really tightens your skin, really makes your skin so much healthier. It gives you like that nice glow. Wow, I love that. Thanks so much for letting me know. Yeah, so the whole thing, it's 127 for this, plus 29 for that, blah, 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 or whatever. Right, now they have offered a solution to someone and they go, you know what, I'm not really sure if I'd be interested. Okay, all good. Well, have a great rest of your day. Right, like there's really, you don't have to make it weird. You don't have to like, so you're ready to buy? Like, hey, get out your credit card. Like, you don't have to be weird about that. You're just letting them know that you have an opening in your calendar, and would they be interested in taking it? That's all it is. So when you're looking at the next component of this, you have the lead generation function, the sales function, the operational function. Generally, if you're going to get stuck, this is where you're going to get stuck. You're going to get stuck in the operational function. You're going to be stuck building websites. You're going to be stuck putting on roofs, building decks, whatever, right? So this is where people tend to get stuck. If you're going to ignore something, it's generally the accounting function. And it generally goes something like this. Well, I have more money in my bank account this month than last month. I must be doing okay. So I have a degree in accounting, by the way. And I have said those words. So I just want you to know, no judgment here, but I'm just telling you, this is why, again, when I have the host the class, the financial literacy for business owners, I have a whole course behind that. But when people look at this, they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I really need to understand it. But many people have a fear around accounting. But look, you don't need to fear it. You just need to recognize that it's a different skill set than what you might have. And so let me ask you, are all these areas, are these the same skill set? No, obviously they're not the same skill set. That's why the solopreneur really struggles. But when you are bringing people into your organization, when you are growing your organization, they are going to be all in alignment with your core values. Oh my gosh, it keeps coming back up again, right? That's right. But your core values, the truth is this. When you're bringing people into your organization, you can interview better, you can hire better, you can coach and counsel them better. Termination is easier. Because you're just like, I mean, have you ever fired a bad customer? Look, you're just not in alignment with our core values, and that's okay. You're a better customer for someone else. I would much rather you be a satisfied customer of someone else's than an unsatisfied customer of mine. And I have said those words because it's true. It's not just a pithy thing to say. I would rather you be a satisfied customer of someone else's than an unsatisfied customer of mine, because our core values just don't align, and that's okay. You can just let that person go. So that's what I'm saying. It sets the tone when you have your core values defined. It sets the tone for meetings. It defines the company culture. And like I said, the company DNA. And it unbelievably raises your personal commitment when you have these things defined. So again, remember, you're not the only person in your organization that's making decisions. You're not the only person who's a role model for others. And just keep in mind that if you don't define your company core values, they will be defined. They're just going to be defined by the strongest personality that's in the room. So you better hope it's always you. Okay? So I'm just letting you know, like, again, if that's not you, who is it? And who happens to be the one that's defining it when you're not around? So all of this goes to the crux of growing by addition versus growing by multiplication. You can grow by addition by just hiring just anybody. But if you want to grow by addition, if you want to grow by multiplication, hire others that share your core values. Hire others that have leadership potential or are already leaders in some way. That's how you're growing by leadership by multiplication, because when you bring in other leaders, now you're bringing in other people who already have an established tribe that they can bring with them. These are problem solvers. These are people who already know they already got a guy or got a gal for lots of different things. So again, if you want to grow and you want to grow fast, that's the best way to do it. Bring in other people who align with your core values and especially have leadership capabilities. So again, if you want to grow, you got to have the right systems in place. You got to have great leadership. There's just no getting around that. Your lead generation actions have to be 60 to 70% of your daily actions, and you have to hire and develop and train great leaders. All right. So the last section here, if you guys have questions, go ahead and type in your questions. I'll answer them here at the end. So that's right, Michelle, you are in Ireland and have a legal firm. That's right, you're opening a legal firm. Very good. Now I remember. All right. I have a good memory, but unfortunately um, we haven't really met, but like Paulette, I remembered I incorrectly put her in Chicago, but she was actually in Detroit, and she was so kind. She didn't say anything. She didn't correct me until I asked. But anyway, if you guys do have questions, go ahead and type in your questions. I'll answer them here at the end. But in the very beginning, I asked you if you were seeking knowledge to understand versus seeking knowledge to take action. And I want to ask you right now, like, what are the things, like, this is where we're going to part, and you're going to like, oh my gosh, this is good. I took a lot of notes. Okay, fine. That's great. I love hearing that, but I want to know what you're going to take action on. Like, what is the thing that you're going to do? What's the thing you really feel like you need to work on? Because there's so much. I know there's a lot of areas in here that I touched, but realistically, most people are going to have to do some work probably around their 3 C's of business vision: their core purpose, core values, and client avatar. Some people are probably going to have to work on their personal vision. Some people may need to work on their strategy or their tactical SOPs, like the day-to-day operational things, because they don't have those defined at all. But whatever it is, maybe they have to work on their personal or individual psychology, or maybe they have to do a little bit of work on their organizational psychology. But whatever it is, this is the sort of things where you're starting to recognize you have control over a lot of these things. Okay, so that's what you're looking. So again, this is where you're seeking knowledge to take action versus seeking knowledge just simply to understand. So for those of you who are interested, this does cost a few dollars if you are interested. It's a school community that I have, and it's a monthly thing that you'd be a part of. I'm not going to hard pitch this. I'm just trying to let you know it is available to you. And what this is, it's basically a daily training and networking and business business platform. We're going to be talking about everything that I talked about today around the Viper framework, around the 4 core functions of business, around the trust, vision, and communication model of leadership, and so many other things. And also around individual and organizational psychology, all these different aspects. Even if you have a bad relationship with money, if you have a bad relationship with time, even if you have like a really bad habit of starting things and not finishing things, these are all the things that we're going to be dealing with and really ramping up as I get into my school community. So if you're interested, there's a very base minimum cost. If you're interested in just being part of the community, that doesn't involve any one-to-one coaching. If you are interested in more one-to-one coaching, it'll be pretty much self-explanatory in there. I'm actually getting ready to put a video on there that'll explain it all. So here's what I'm willing to do. If you get into it, I'll give you 90 days. If you hate it, after 90 days, I'll give you all your money back. I have no interest in keeping someone's money if they are in it and they don't feel like it was worth every nickel. So I'll give you 90-day money back guarantee on that. So let's see here. We've got a couple of people. So St. Somerville is saying networking. Is that something that you're working on? I'm going to say that that's the thing that you're working on. Okay, very good. Thank you, Saint. Michelle is saying, I'm seeking knowledge to take action on. I need to do work on my strategies and organizational psychology. Okay, excellent. Excellent. Very good. Thank you, Michelle. And Michelle is saying, I procrastinate. Yeah, I get it. And that procrastination is tricky because it's a bad relationship with time. And I know a lot of people have that same issue, so I get that. Thank you for putting that up there. And I struggle with that too, by the way. It's especially if I'm overloaded. And this is one of the things, I just want to put this back up there real quick, Michelle. The procrastination for me really was much easier to manage when I only had a daily 3. When I put my hey, I don't care if I get nothing else done this day. If I get these 3 things done, I will be moving the needle. And that really helped me out with procrastination. I see a lot of people have struggles with procrastination when they have a to-do list that's a mile long, right? Or in your case, 5 kilometers long, right? Or whatever. Okay, but I'm just saying, like, if you have this list that's way long, you have 100 things to do, and you don't have a daily 3 or a daily 5 determined for what you're doing that day, it's very easy to procrastinate. So that would be my suggestion, is to change it that way. Let's see. What were the books you had recommended? The books I recommended, well, I mentioned the books that I have. I don't know that I recommended any other books. I'm not even suggesting that I recommended my books. I'm just saying, I'm trying to think of any other books that I may have recommended. So I'm not sure if I recommended any other books if you are interested in my books, though, oh, Good to Great. That's it. Yes. Okay, that's it. So I read what I'm talking about. That's it. Okay, that's okay. So there were the author is Jim Collins, and he wrote probably one of his best books. He wrote Good to Great. Good to Great was written like in the 90s, though. I think it was actually published in 98. So it's pretty aged at this point. It's a good book, though. Talks about the hedgehog concept, and it's really about being really good at one thing. It's kind of like, reminds you of core purpose. Talked about, having the right people in the right seats on the bus. Really, really good foundational book. And he really did it based on a lot of research. It was interesting because one of the companies that's in there was Circuit City, and Circuit City was doing really, really well up to that point, and it was not long later that it actually went out of business. But really, really good book. So Jim Collins, he wrote Good to Great, Great by Choice. So he has, this is Good to Great, and Great by Choice. These are the two books here, and he also wrote Built to Last, and that's in the other room in my other library. So, but those are probably the two books that I would read right out of the gate. Good to Great, and then Great by Choice. Those are by Jim Collins, and Jim Collins also had a co-author of Morton Hansen for Great by Choice. Those were two really good books. The others were John Maxwell, and John Maxwell has written a gazillion books. His books start to get very repetitive, so I really kind of feel like, you can pick any one and kind of start in the middle. I've actually stopped reading the stuff that he's written just because, it's not bad. There was one that was Leadership. Probably the best one he wrote was Developing the Leader Within. Developing the Leader Within You, and I think he has a 2.0 version of that. That was really good. I really liked that one. I thought that was quite good. He also wrote How Successful People. This is a teeny tiny book. This just kind of talks about the level 5 leaders. How Successful People Lead. This is a really good one. So those are probably where I would say, John Maxwell. This one's the older version of that same book, Developing the Leader Within You. There's a 2.0 version of this. Do not read this one. Read the 2.0 version. The How Successful People Lead is also his other book. So those are the books I would recommend. Okay. Hopefully I answered your question. All right, let's go back. That was a brilliant, okay, hold on a second. That was brilliant advice. You're advising I cut my to-do list down to 3. Not your to-do list, Michelle. Your to-do list is your to-do list, right? You're always going to have to check email. You're always going to have to check voicemail. You're always going to have to do things, right? But I'm talking about your daily 3 actions. Again, I've talked about it daily 5. When you get the replay, it's something I talked about in execution. Execution is where again, you have to define these things, specifically what you're going to do, that are the needle moving activities, the needle movers. You checking voicemail is probably just more of a maintenance thing. You checking voicemail, checking email, checking the mail, right? Or the post, right? However you phrase it, that's probably not that big of a deal for you. But you like reaching out to other attorneys, you going to a networking event, and you publishing a post on a blog are probably the 3 things that you can do every day that are needle moving activities that are going to get your name out there. Does that make sense? So what we're looking at are needle moving activities. We're not looking for just random crap. This thing I'm doing right now, this webinar, is a needle moving activity for me. This is part of my daily 3. Make sense? So I'm not suggesting it replaces your to-do list. It augments your to-do list on the things that that are most important. So Saint is saying that was a really good read. Okay. I'm not sure which that was, but okay, I'll agree. Let's see. Sergeant, is it possible to get the PowerPoint, please? I'll just give you the replay. That's probably going to be the best thing for you to do, is just get the replay. The replay is going to be available. It's going to be emailed to you, and it's also going to be on YouTube. So you can take whatever notes. But And I'm not trying to be a jerk. Just these files are starting to get really, really large because I have lots of media embedded in them, and it would be really, really difficult. And right now, my email's being really fussy. It's saying that I'm sending out a lot of spam. I email a lot of people. I don't know what to tell you, so I don't know. So yeah, sorry, Sergeant, but you can see all the slides. You'll get the replay, and you can get it there. So let's see, we got that. Jim Collins' book, Good to Great and Great by Choice and Built to Last. Yes, very good, Michelle. Oh, you're all over it. Thank you. John Maxwell books. B 2.0 is another Jim Collins book. I did not know that. I haven't read everything that he's had, but I've read a lot of his stuff. Developing the Leader Within You, John Maxwell. Yeah, I think that's the one that's got a 2.0 version. That one's really good. Paulette. Mark, awesome offer the school program. For me, procrastination and failure to actually take consistent action. Yeah, Paulette's actually in the school program now. So it's great to have you there. Procrastination and failure to take consistent action. Yeah, so for that's what I would suggest too. Procrastination is a big thing, and I think it's because when you're overloaded with so many different choices, pick 3. Just pick 3 things and move on in that direction, because I see that I mean that's how I was able to get my book published and finally completed in May of last year, because I had it done and I was just working on it every single day, and I was like, nope, I'm trying to get 1 chapter a week done, and I did, and I got the chapters all done. I pretty much had it done by the middle part of April, and I was able to get it published in the early part of May. So I see. Yes, my daily 3 actions. Needless to say, movers, not maintenance things like checking email. Exactly right. That's exactly right, Michelle. Needle moving activities. I get it. Reaching out to attorneys. Yep, that's exactly it. Reaching out to attorneys or people who need what it is you're doing. Whatever. I don't know what type of law that you're practicing. I'm assuming it's like the United States where you have specialties. So, do you call yourself barristers there? I'm feeling like that's a thing in the UK. So I apologize if I'm getting that wrong. So Paulette is saying that suggestions of 3 sounds doable. It really is, and it's how I've gotten. Last year I read 42 books, I published 5, and I started a PhD program, and still spent a tremendous amount of time with my family. So these are the things that I have. Yes, solicitors and barristers. I thought so. Never heard of solicitors. Interesting. Learn a new word today. All right. Okay. Well, everybody, thanks so much. I think that you guys have been a lot of fun. Appreciate you guys showing up. Michelle, good to see you. Paulette, everyone else who was part of this session today. You are more than welcome, Michelle. Thank you for showing up. If you guys are interested, like I said, you're welcome to join me in the boardroom, which is that school.com/strategic boardroom. There are different avenues of this. I'm just going to let you know, like I said, if you join and you are in it for 90 days and you're like, nope, this is total crap, this is not what I want at all, I will happily give your money back. I would just ask you, give it the 90 days, because there's a lot of things that are in there that just take time to unpack. But again, this is the type of training that you'll get. You'll get a little bit more granular stuff and more specific to you. So again, if the lowest level is currently at $39, and if you're looking for more one-to-one stuff, there's 2 other different areas where you're looking for. If you are interested in the highest one though, just letting you know, I will do a little bit of a screening with you, because I'm not going to let you spend money unless I really think that you're really going to get the value from it. So I'm not about taking people's money unless I really think they're going to get the value. So there will be some screening, just letting you know. If you are interested in the high-end coaching, that'll be involved. All right, so it is. Oh, we got Duffy McDufferson there. What's up, John? We are going to take action in about a year. We are in the planning stage. Great show again. Spot on. Very good. Want it, driver? It is my pleasure, Michelle. Thank you so very much in joining me and you stayed up late again for me. Thanks so much in Ireland. And Paulette, it's a true pleasure. And we'll be chatting again very soon on school. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for sticking around. Have a great day. We'll see you guys in the boardroom.